Today, we are doing parallel agentic engineering. We are running multiple AI agents in multiple tracks at the same time in different work trees. And I'll be honest, I end up using Claude Code quite a bit here to fix Kiro, because Kiro doesn't really understand itself in the same meta way that Claude Code does. So we're using Claude Code to go in and fix some issues that we're running into with Kiro. So we get a little bit meta today with using Claude Code and Kiro together. And a quick thing here before we dive in, I can see from my analytics here that a lot of you who are watching are not subscribed yet. So if you're getting a lot of value out of this series here, please hit and subscribe. It actually helps me a lot and it shows that it's worth for me to keep doing this. Also, I've had a few people tell me about my video and audio quality. And here's the deal. My partner has made it a rule that no new mic or camera until I hit 10,000 subscribers. So please help me get there so I can get some better equipment. Okay, let's get into it. So we're back working with Kiro on our Shards application. We left off last time being able to create parallel instances in separate work trees. So we're going to continue from where we are here, and we're going to continue building out our hackathon project. And today we are really going to start digging into some parallel workflows and starting to kind of really scale up our velocity here on development. So let's take a look at that. So last time we had a pull request created. So right now we have this pull request here in our system. So we want to review this. We haven't done that yet. And if you remember from episode 2, we already built a review system. So let's launch that. So we have now launched up here a new Kiro instance in the Kiro CLI. Our PR is PR number 1. And let's just take a quick look at our prompt that I cannot remember in my head. We have, that's not it. This is its code review orchestrator. I'm just going to say here, can you please run the code review orchestrator on PR number 1? So that should launch our code workflow. So we have the review orchestrator now being launched. Perfect. So now that's running. Perfect. In the meanwhile, what I'd like to do is we can use the same instance here. We're going to launch up a new terminal. Okay, so it's actually already done here. That didn't not bring me a lot of confidence. It didn't do a very thorough review. But let's take a look. Did you post any comment on the PR review 1? Can't see that there was a comment out of here. Okay, can you please use the GitHub CLI and check, because I cannot see any comment there. Can you please also look into why the agent failed? And also it seems like the agent didn't run a very thorough review. It seems like it didn't launch any of its other agents that it should. So please look into that workflow and see what went wrong. Let's check here. So then the orchestrator prompts here are wrong. So as you can see, all of the review agents should have access to the GitHub CLI as well. So they should be instructed to review using the GitHub CLI. Another option is always, of course, to check out the branch and check directly from the branch. But yeah, please update all of the prompt instructions needed to address this. Track the entire workflow from the orchestrator into each subagent and address this issue. Of course you do. You can just go in and edit the marked files or the prompt files. So one thing that I don't like about Kiro is that it doesn't understand how it works. So with Claude Code is very good at meta prompting itself. The Claude Code team has done a really good job at making Claude Code understand the internal workings of Claude Code. So when you're talking about how to improve prompts, how to improve different things with your workflows, Claude Code gets it. Claude Code understands what you're trying to do, understands what files you should modify and so on. With Kiro, however, whenever I'm trying to edit the prompt, edit like all the things that we have tried so far, it always seems to struggle a little bit with understanding what it is I actually wanted to do. So I have to like over prompt, over tell it what I needed to do. So yeah, that's a little bit annoying. Of course, it's an easy workaround. We can just meta prompt a little bit ourselves, but it really, the Kiro team here should make some effort into making Kiro understand what it's capable of and not capable of. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to quit out of here and we can run it over here. Let's just clear. Can you please run the code reviewer orchestrator on PR number 1? Let's see if that now works. So see, like, even as it's invoked to run its own agent, it basically resends its way, right? I don't have access to any code reviewer orchestrator tool or any GitHub PR management capabilities in my current toolset, but it has both. It has an agent and it has the GitHub CLI. So here, the Kiro agent doesn't understand this by default. So it seems strange here because we were able, the other day when we tested this, we were able to have the code reviewer orchestrator invoke other agents, no problem. But here it doesn't seem to work. Okay, so it seems like we're going to have to rework our code review orchestration here a little bit, which is fine. We're going to deal with that later. Let's just take a look at the difference here, right? If we run Claude Code here and we run /, we actually don't have. I'm going to bring in my Claude commands here and we can just take a look at the difference. Okay, here we go. Please rebase with main. In the meanwhile, we're going to launch up Claude Code here. Okay, please move back to main. If we're not on main already, looks like we are. Great. Okay, please now commit everything and push everything directly to main. So now what I'm doing, I'm just bringing in my code review system that I use in Claude Code, and I'm going to compare that for what we have here in Kiro. So we're going to actually use Claude Code here a little bit to see. I'm just going to exit this again to load everything in properly. And I'm just going to say here /review all, and I'm going to do PR number 1. So this is how it's supposed to work. Let's take a look. It gets right away, it gets it what to do. And we can see here that this now starts to launch the agents. I'm going to quit out of Kiro here for a second. So I have a theory here that we're going to be able to use Claude Code to improve our Kiro system. So I'm going to do that here in a little bit. First, let's try this. I'm going to bring in some of my planning commands too, because I have some planning prompts that I want to bring in. So I'm actually gonna, okay, we're just gonna keep some duplicates here. So I'm gonna say here, gonna make sure that we don't have too much duplication. Gonna bring in create plan. We have create plan. We can also have implement plan. Implement fix we have at the moment. Let's go to implement plan. I'm gonna remove implement fix because we're not gonna use that. Okay, but we are going to use 2 other commands here. So as you can see, we're gonna have I brought in implement plan and create plan. We're also gonna do investigate issue and implement issue. We're gonna bring in. So one thing we're gonna need to do here as well is I'm gonna launch Claude Code and I'm gonna say, can you please look into how the Kiro CLI works deeply, especially how prompts work and how sub-agents works in the Kiro CLI? Look into the latest documentation. So here I'm just using another Claude Code instance just to prime it on how Kiro works. I want to use Claude Code for this because I can't be bothered to work around the limitations at the moment here of Kiro. So we're just going to set Kiro up properly using Claude Code, and then we're going to start using Kiro. So a little bit of meta usage here of Claude Code. But yeah, I'm just much more confident in how Claude Code will actually be able to understand all of this without running into a bunch of unnecessary issues, essentially. But yeah, here we go. I'm going to let that run. We should now have a comment coming in here on PR number 1. Let's take a look. Perfect. So here we go. Now we have 3 critical issues found. We have now 6 important issues found. So we have some issues in silent failure, not tested. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is finding actually a lot of good things here that we want to address. So I'm just going to do here, I'm going to use Claude Code for this as well. So I'm going to say, please address all the issues. Since we do want to use Kiro for this, let's just quit out. We can exit from Claude Code and let's launch Kiro here again. So now we have a Kiro instance. So now we're just going to say, can you please read all of the findings from the code review on PR number 1 inside of this repository? Okay. Before we start, can you please just commit and push everything to main, all of the markdown file changes that we have? So since we have some new prompts here, let's just push that to main before we start messing around here. So now what I'd like to do, PRD routes. So let's do that. And we can do, please create the PRD for, or we can't actually do that. Let's do PRD Ralph. I think it's going to ask me. And I want you to create a Ralph PRD based fully on all of the issues. We want to address all of the issues found on PR number 1 code review. Something that I would also like to have with Kiro here that I have in Claude Code is I have this kind of command output style, or one thing that I like that I have in Claude Code that I don't have in Kiro is that I have this information here. So I know where I am and I know that I have the right model. I know something about how long I've been running and stuff like that. But the main thing I know is which branch I'm on. So that's something that I would really like to have here in Kiro as well. Maybe we can set that up later. Okay, great. Yeah, we want to check out the branch, exactly. So check out the branch and then let's start Ralph. Let's see, we should be able now to run Ralph Wiggum here on this PRD file. I'm going to just take a look at it. It shouldn't be anything too crazy. Yeah, so it should have all of the issues here listed. I'm not going to go into that, but great, looks great. 10 issues. I think we had some more. Yeah, we had definitely had some more, but yeah, we'll compare that later. Okay, so let's just let that run a little bit. I'm gonna work in here as well in the Claude Code. So now I'd like you to take a look at all of our .kiro/prompts. We copied in some new ones there since Kiro does not support the argument syntax. We need to have the workaround where in all of the files where we use the $ arguments, we need to rewrite that into a way so that Kiro instead asks us the question of what the input should be. If you look at some of the files in there and then look for all of the $ arguments, you should be able to find all of those instances and understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna make sure that this is written correctly. Okay, yeah, so it seems to understand exactly what I mean here with arguments, exactly. So that looks good. We have these questions here added instead now. We should have the same in implement. Okay, we actually, since we are on the branch here, we are missing that actually. Let's just let this run. Should have done that in the work tree. So Ralph loop is about to finish up here on the code review fixes. Let's take a look at our, I don't know where the progress.txt goes. In here, okay. Let's take a look. Okay, seems to work pretty neatly. At least the Ralph loop seems to work quite well. I also knew that because I ran it on Friday a few times. So the Ralph loop here in Kiro seems to actually do quite well. Let's take a look here as we're running. We can see, so I started somewhere around 50 tokens on Friday. I have ran maybe 3 Ralph loops. So it is quite costly, but it's not as bad as I expected. So you can see I have started to use now from the Kiro hackathon credits as well. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on this as we move along here. Let's take a look here. We should have some commits coming in. I don't know if it has been pushed yet. No. Let's see. Okay. Okay, our Ralph loop is completed. So yeah, as you can see, this has taken now quite a long time. I don't know exactly how long, probably 15, 20 minutes or so. And since I didn't set that up in a work tree at all, we had to kind of wait for that to complete. So we couldn't really do much in parallel. So I was doing some other things in the meanwhile. But yeah, this really shows here kind of like the value of what shards actually will be able to do. So when we are running like a loop or a pib loop or a Ralph loop or any kind of these agentic loops, it will become more and more popular, I can promise you that. We can do that in an isolated environment, an isolated place, so that we can continue on other tracks in the meanwhile. We maybe can even run 5, 10 in parallel of these while we do something else on our main branch, or we do some planning of some new tasks and whatnot. We'll get more into that later in upcoming days here. But yeah, so this is really just to showcase why it's absolutely needed to be able to parallelize these kind of things. Okay, I'm just gonna say, did you also push everything to the PR? Okay, great. All of that should be pushed, not the artifacts. Okay, you missed the artifacts. You can commit and push that too, since we are keeping that in version history just for tracking. So I'm just pushing these artifacts up so that you can kind of see as well. If you want to kind of follow along and see everything that I've done, I'm just going to push everything. I'm not going to hide anything in here. Okay, great. So now that everything here is pushed, can you now also please test the CLI, like test all of the functionality we have in the CLI? Once you have confirmed that everything is working as intended, can you also please list all of the currently working and implemented functionality, not only related to this PR, but everything that we have working in the application in the source directory right now? Okay, so why I'm doing that as well is because I don't necessarily remember exactly where we were in our, just to get the kind of, I have a pretty good idea of the roadmap in my head, but I haven't really documented the roadmap. So I just want to kind of see where I am on that roadmap to see what I'm going to be implementing next. What I think that we're going to need to do is we're going to need the pruning system to kind of clean up trees. As you can see here, we have some failures here as well. And we also want to have a config system. So we want to be able to configure agents like CLIs we have configured, which directories we have configured, how to create them and how to store them properly and so on. So we want to have a little bit of a config file where we can control this. So we already scoped that out in a previous episode here, but we're going to dig into more about how that's actually going to work in practice. And yeah, you see we have some fails on destroys. I think we haven't really implemented this pruning and destroying system yet. So that's something that's going to have to also create, but we can see here that we can now successfully create the shard. Some things are still failing. So see, we have some things that are definitely not working properly here, which is fine. Let's take a look. While you were executing some of the CLI commands, I did see some failures, especially to delete or prune or create new work trees. Can you explain those failures to me? This is a really nice use case of any kind of agent that you're using. You can always have the agent explain back what is happening. So yeah, it's just created an error. Okay. Since those previous things were already created, can you clean up? Can you prune? We have a lot of test work trees there. Can you please prune everything? Delete all of these that we have used for testing. So I'm not sure. I don't think we have that prune command yet, but maybe we do. Okay, so was there some issues there that we should address in our application? Shards we're not able to do here. Yeah, so we see that there is no pruning. Yeah, we had to manually git work tree prune. So that's expected. We haven't implemented that yet. That's great. Okay, great. So I do have an idea here about what I want to do. I want to merge this domain now. So commit everything and merge it. From here now, we're going to create a few different tracks. We're going to create one track to work on configs, one to work on port allocation, one to work on this cleanup issues, pruning, what happens with orphaned branches and so on. And then we are going to also work on one GUI track. So we're basically going to have 4 parallel tracks that we can run. But please start by merging domain and rebase and merge or squash. I don't know. You decide. So yeah, we're just going to merge this into main. We know that there are some issues, but there isn't actually implementation issues. It's more issues that are related to things that we haven't implemented yet, which is fine. So we're going to get into that now. So let's just see. We need to resolve some. Let's see if this now is merged. Yeah. Okay, great. We should now be back on main. Can you please look here? Because I think that here we now have some more instances of this argument syntax thing in our Kiro prompts. So I'm just going to send now a message to our Claude code here that we had before. If you don't remember, we were working on improving some of the prompts here on the Kiro side, but we're using Claude Code to improve the system. So see here, we now found 9 new instances. It's because we copied over a lot of things from my Claude files here. We copied them into prompts. So we have some implement issue, implement plan, and stuff like that we are going to be using here. So with that said, let's now just wait for that to be implemented. Great. So now we have here, I'm going to use, yeah, we should have a pretty solid foundation here. So what I would like you to do here is just document everything you found related to the cleanup track, like the pruning and deleting and branch cleanup, all of that, these kind of things. Just create down file in the root where you document all those issues that you ran into during this testing. So we're just going to do that so that we create a little bit of a track here because we're going to clean up this instance and run a new one. Great. Now we have some things here that are done for that. Okay, so please commit and push that directly to main. So this is just working on markdown files. I'm not changing any code here. Now, the next thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to say here to Claude Code essentially to basically mirror our code review system, but for the Kiro CLI. So I'm just going to say read all files.claude, then please read and understand the .Kiro code in should be in here in agents. We need to rewrite this .Kiro agents to work very similarly to how our .Claude code review agent swarm is working. The difference is that, of course, we can't use the argument syntax of how this is invoked. So in a very similar manner, we want to have an @prompt. So in the .kiro/prompts directory, we want to have a command that starts this whole system, the code review system, and that should ask the user, what's the scope? Is it a PR? Is it the current diff? Whatever. And then the code review prompt should invoke those agents to run in parallel. So that should work. You can look into the Kiro documentation here to make sure that it works like that, but it should work like that. So let's try that out. You feel free to do any kind of changes that you need to do to the .Kiro agents and add that command or /prompt and that is needed to start that entire system. Okay, so now we're just going to use Claude Code here again to just fix our code review swarm to make it work properly with Kiro. I know the issue is just that it's not working to run subagents within subagents. So our initiator command is not working properly. So we need to really just fix that. We also can improve the prompts a little bit because I looked over the prompts and the prompts are actually quite insufficient. Like they are not at all as good and detailed as my prompts are from here. So we can use a lot of those learnings from here. A lot of this learnings from here is also taken from the official Claude Code plugin for code review swarms. So if you're interested in that, you can also go over there and look at that. But yeah, we're basically creating that for Kiro. Let's see. It should work quite well once it's up and running. And we can then I'm sure that I will be jumping over to Claude Code a few times more throughout here just to get things working properly in Kiro. But once we have Kiro in a good state where we can continue working with it, I'm gonna try to do as much as I can in Kiro, but it's also just to kind of speed it up here because I spent quite a lot of time already today. But it's also because we haven't made a lot of progress because that whole Ralph loop took quite a while to run. And yeah, let's see, we should have cleanup issues. Great. So now we can actually exit. We should do /quit. There's one more thing I kind of want to bring over here, and it is related to our skill. So I'm just going to do open, and we're going to bring in our work tree manager skill here as well. I'm just going to paste it here, and it needs to go into skills. Okay, so doing a lot of updates to prompts and stuff here. And we're gonna also just copy this our Kiro instance here to that skill when we need to use it. Since we cannot use powers in the Kiro CLI directly, we have to do this kind of workaround. Okay, we're just gonna say, yes, please commit. Also do a commit all because I added some more. I added a skill there as well that we can just push directly to main. Okay, so now we should have that done. I'm going to copy this here right now. So what we really want to do now is we want to just tell here to Kiro, we want to say, please, I'm going to do this here. So please read .claude/skills/worktree-manager. Read the skill.md so you have a clear understanding of how that skill works. Then I want you to launch one new work. I want it to have, it should be called cleanup track, Shards cleanup track, it should be called. I want you to launch the work tree with our Kiro chat agent instead of the CC agent that is configured by default. So I want you to use this starting command for the agent when you have started the work tree. So let's see how it does with that. So what I'm doing here, essentially, I'm using a work tree skill, basically from our Claude skills, and I'm trying to get Kiro CLI to use it. So you can see here that it's at least finding, it's looking for, yeah, so now it's found the file, and it's gonna now work on that. So it should be able to just run those shell commands that I have in there and quite quickly get this up and running. Okay. So it seems to have launched it here. Okay. Can you confirm for me which work tree we are on? Okay, that seems to have worked great actually. Okay, so it named it quite stupidly here, which is fine. We're just going to keep the name like that. It's fine. What I want you to do now is I want you to read the cleanup issues file that we have in our root. Perfect. So now we're going to do at. Need to check what our command name was. Create plan. There we go. So I want you to create a plan for the issues that are listed in the cleanup issues. So the idea here is that we should have a feature that keeps track of orphaned branches so we can easily prune and clean up. We also want to detect when things are, say that, for example, when work tree is merged into main, or like a branch of a work tree is merged into main, we want to also clean that up automatically. So we want to have this kind of tracking what is open, clean up with prune if something gets orphaned. And we want to also have a kind of smart way of detecting if things are orphaned. So we're gonna try that and see what it comes up with. So that's a pretty good. Now we have one track up and running. What we can do now is we can create a plan for the next track. So please follow the same process and create a new work tree. The next track that we want to create a work tree for is the config track. And what we want for the config track here, we'll do that later. Let's just create the work tree, name it Shards config track, and let me know when you're done. Yeah, so the skill actually works quite well. I hope this gets saved to file now. I'm going to do at plan feature, I think, create plan. The plan we want to work on now is going to be called the config track plan. The idea here is that we're going to create a shards slash config.tom. It should live in the user root, and it should also live in the project root of any given directory. We want to be able to, first of all, just configure a couple of things here. We can start quite simple here. We want to be able to configure what agent to run, if it should be Claude, if it should be Kiro CLI, Gemini, Codex, Aider, and so on. Then we want to be able to set our preferred terminal to use, for example, iterm2. Then we want to be able to set the agent command. So we can just call it agent command, and that should be the startup command. We can call it agent startup string, and we should be able to configure that. So it should be, for example, with Claude Code, I have an alias, so it's CC. With Kiro, it's Kiro-chat. With Gemini, it's just Gemini. And with Codex, it's just Codex. And with Aider, it's Aider. We also want to be able to add flags. For example, dangerously skip permissions with Claude Code to enter into a YOLO mode. And for example, with Gemini slash YOLO. And for Kiro, we will also want to be able to configure this. So you don't have to add the configurations. That should be exactly the word that it should be in the flag, but we want to be able to do a dash flag. So basically that should just be appended to the startup string, the agent startup string. If you are unsure about what those startup strings should look like, you can also just Google it. Also, the hierarchy here should be that the defaults basically are written in the user root in the /shards/config. And then we can overwrite those by putting shards config inside of one of our repos. And then we should also be able to override it by argumenting the CLI. So we should also be able to add arguments to our CLI to kind of override most of these configurations. Okay, now we should, that's actually wrong here. It's fine, this is from my old command, but what we can do is we should be able to just say at implement plan. And for that, we should be able to just use that file name that we actually got there. Should have copied that before, but it should be in, need to confirm that location. Okay, we should just ask it. Can you please confirm the location where the plan file was stored in the cleanup track? Yeah, so it was stored in a little bit the wrong location. This is fine. We can edit that with our, we can edit that in our command files. Yes, that is the plan. So now we're running an implementation command here. This is not a Ralph loop, but it's very similar to a Ralph loop. So it is basically a piv loop implementation or a PRP type implementation, where it's basically running the same type of Ralph loop, but it's just a little bit less deterministic than the actual Ralph loop. It still has the same kind of validations that it's going through, so it's kind of checking itself at every step, and it's not stopping until it's done. So it works very similarly. So yeah, you can try out those commands too. Those are what I use mainly day to day when I don't use Ralph loops. And yeah, take a look at that. I'm going to let this run. It's going to take a while. We also have the same thing here in other track. So we can just do at in lemon at #plan. Now I give it the file path. And it also does the config track. So now you can see we are on 2 different work trees, and we are doing these 2 in parallel. We have used the skill in order to manage our work trees. So the next step, what we're going to do once we have this application working a little bit better, is that we're actually going to rewrite our skill to use shards directly instead of using the shell scripts that it's using. So that's something that is going to be in, probably we're going to get that working already tomorrow. But yeah, I just want to have a few more things set up. So right now we're running 2 things in parallel. We're also going to have port allocation. We're going to set that up tomorrow. And we're also going to start building the GUI probably also tomorrow. So it's going to be quite exciting tomorrow here to start really scaling up what we can do in parallel, getting shards actually to work with our skill. We're also going to try to make it into a Kiro power so we can use it with Kiro IDE, see how that works. And yeah, so some exciting things to come here in the next couple of days. We're also, of course, going to code review all of this and stuff like that. But right now, since this is probably going to take quite a while to run, I'm going to end it for the day here. So what I'm going to do after this is done, I'm just going to create PRs. I'm going to create a devlog, and then I'm going to end it. And I'm going to start tomorrow with just reviewing those PRs. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you again tomorrow.